Yes, Mr. Millett.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Can I now call Station Manager Pete Wolfenden?
Yes, thank you.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I give shall be the truth.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Wolfenden. Sit down and make yourself comfortable. Yes, Mr.
Just
Millett.
before we start, I'd just like to pass on my deepest sympathy to all those family and friends who lost loved ones in this tragedy, and I hope you get what you want and need from this inquiry.
Right, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfenden. Before we start, can I ask you please to begin by giving us your full name?
Peter Frederick Wolfenden.
And can I begin by thanking you very much indeed for coming to the inquiry, giving evidence as you're going to, and assisting us with our investigations. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I say this to all witnesses. My questions are intended to be short and simple. Sometimes they're not. If you don't understand a question or you would like me to repeat it, I'm very happy to do so, or to put the question in a different way. Similarly, if you need a break at any time, then just signal and we can take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you please to start by looking at your statement dated the 4th of June 2017, which will be on the screen on the right on the desk in front of you, and also in a blue file if you want it in paper form in front of you on the desk. It's MET 000-17428, and it's dated the 4th of June 2018, I should say. 18, I can correct that. Have you read it recently?
Yes.
And can you confirm for us that its contents are true?
Yes.
We also have two exhibits. The first one is MET 000-17596, which is a map of the area, which I think you've marked. And secondly, a photograph of the wall on the ground floor, which is MET 000-17597, which we'll come on to. Can I ask you this? Have you discussed your statement or the evidence that you're going to give to us with anybody before coming here today?
No.
Now, I'm going to begin with some questions about your position. I'm right in thinking, am I, that you've been in the LFB for nearly 30 years?
Yes.
And in June 2017, you held then the same rank as you hold today, namely station manager.
Yes.
And in June 2017, you were based at Hendon, yes?
Yes.
And you say in your statement on page 2, second paragraph from the bottom, that you went back to being station manager on the fire safety team. That was after temporary promotion to temporary group manager. Can you just tell us, what does this fire safety team do?
I was the fire safety team leader, and the fire safety team, there was 10 investigating officers, and they're responsible for fire safety.
And how many people are in the fire safety team?
Sorry?
How many people were in the fire safety team?
In my team, there
when
was
you
10 in total. I think there's just over 250.
And did you have a specific role on the fire safety team?
I was a team leader.
And what does that involve?
I look after the team. I authorise their payments. I vet their reports, and I'm still an operational firefighter. I'm still an operational senior manager.
Right. Do you or did you attend incidents in the capacity as a fire safety team leader?
I think 2. I was only there for a 6-month period.
And what is the job of a fire safety team leader at an incident?
Just to look after the fire, the investigating officers, the ILOs, and to pass the information back to senior managers in the fire safety team.
Right. Now, can I ask you just one or two questions about training? Have you ever received, as an operational officer at the LFB, training in strategies for full or partial evacuation of a high-rise residential block?
Yes.
Could you identify for us some detail about that training? First of all, when did you start getting training on those strategies?
The training would be to do with the, it's not residential, it'd be large blocks of offices, and they have a partial or full evacuation process for the blocks. So it's more to do with commercial properties, and that was while I was in the fire safety team.
Right. Other than in the fire safety team, when was the last time before Grenfell that you received operational training on the subject of evacuation?
Well, we do TDEs constantly. We do, as senior managers, we do a lot of TDEs for new senior managers, and we'd also do we have done actual practical training. I think it was the last time the practical training was about 4 years ago in Barnet. That was for the local authority had a disused tower block, and we played with that for a couple of months.
Right.
So all the Barnet crews, there's 4 watches, they all received practical training, but that was 4 years ago. I said the TDEs probably once or twice a year.
Right. And in those TDEs, does any of the training exercises that get done involve evacuating fully or partially a building with only one means of exit, like a single staircase?
No.
They don't?
No.
Right. Do you recall ever receiving or delivering training on a slideshow called The Tall Buildings Facades, which was prepared by the LFB in the autumn of 2016 following the fire at Shepherd's Court in August 2016?
I have seen it.
You have?
Yes.
In the context of this inquiry or prior to?
Prior to.
Right. But maybe we can just look at it to refresh your memory. Paul, could you put it up? It's LF. There it is. Very good. Right. Is that the document that you were referring to?
Yes.
Right. Can you just explain to us in what circumstances you first came to see this document?
It's part of our ongoing training. We're supposed to keep our skills up, and part of it is we get electronic training packages which we have to keep abreast of, and it's one of those packages, I believe.
In that last answer, who's the we you're referring to?
Senior officers. It's a senior officer pack. Senior officers have to do their own training.
Right.
So station managers, borough managers.
Right. So, do you remember how it first came to you? Was it part of a training day or an electronic package, computer-based package, or
it's
how?
A computer-based package, and you have to set time in your own day in your own calendar, in your own diary to actually read through it.
Right. So, can you help us with the extent of the distribution of this document in the LFB after
I couldn't,
it was
no,
put
I'm
out?
sorry. I wouldn't know the full.
Right. When you got this and first looked at it, were you with people on the training day, or did you look at it privately?
It was just in the office on my own, probably.
Right. Well, let's just look at the. Let's look at it. If you can turn, please, to page 25 of the slideshow. You'll see there's general conclusion. I don't want to read it out to you, but the need to understand what products are being used in the facade system and their fire behaviour, and if they're used appropriately and meet the relevant guidance, these could affect the way fires develop and spread in a building. That general conclusion, would it be right to say that when you attended Grenfell on the night of that fire in June 2017, you were aware of these principles, these conclusions?
I was aware of there's been fires beforehand in buildings with cladding on them. Yes, I was aware of it. Right.
And did you consciously use the knowledge that you got from this slideshow in the decisions, any of the decisions you made on the night of that fire?
The fires, there's been a couple of fires that I was made aware of where cladding has been the fire. One was in France and one was I think, in the Middle East, where the cladding ignited. The cladding went up the face of the building and burnt off. When I was standing outside Grenfell for the first time, I think it was about 2:30, 2:15, I looked at the burning building, and I came to the same conclusion. I thought, well, if it's just an external cladding building, it will just burn off. That was my assumption straight away.
Right. Okay. Well, we may come back to that, but just focusing on this training plan, did you make any assumptions one way or the other, as at the night of Grenfell Tower, about how widespread this learning on this page of this slideshow was within the LFB operational frontline officers?
No.
Right. Do you remember whether these general conclusions were widely known in the LFB, or whether they were kept more narrowly to a particular type of officer?
I wouldn't be able to say. I don't know.
Now, let's turn on to your mobilisation at arrival at Grenfell. On page 4 of your statement, in the second substantive paragraph, you say your pager went off at around 1:10 on the night of the incident. And we've got your mobilisation time at just about 15 minutes after that, at 01:26:42. I don't need to show you that, but does that sound about right to you?
The 1:10 was a mistake. The page went off at 1:26. It was
Right.
1:26. I've subsequently seen the transcripts of my phone, and the first phone call I made to control was at 1:30, so 1:26 with the page. It would have been correct.
And we have your status 2 time as just after that at 01:31:58. Again,
Yes.
does that sound about right to you?
Yes.
Right. Now, you, I think, called control, and you were told that the incident had been made up to 20 pumps.
Yes.
And we have a time for that call at 01:29:46. Again, does that sound about right?
I think the 01, yeah, it could be. It could be.
Well, let me just seek to clarify that with you, if I can.
Sure.
If you look at the short incident log, which we've got at tab 23 of the bundle, if you go to page 18, we can see the service request at 01:29:46 of make pumps 20.
Mm-hmm.
So does that help you with your recollection as to when you might
I
have
was
learned
paged
that was
when it made pumps 10. I was paged before the make pumps 20.
right.
So I received the pager. By the time I get dressed, come downstairs, phone up control. Control confirmed it was no longer a 10 pump fire, it was a 20 pump fire.
And you had I think you say you had a conversation with control.
Yes.
Did they tell you anything else other than what the makeup was?
No, it was a very brief conversation. If an incident's gone from 10 pumps to 20 pumps in a space of 2 minutes,
Yeah.
they need resources, so I don't keep them talking. And you could hear in the background they were very, very busy. So I just went straight to status 2, and I made my way to the incident.
Do you remember who you spoke to in the control room?
No, there's no names. It's just a person. I don't know.
No. And what line did you call them on? Was that your brigade mobile or your?
Brigade mobile. Yeah, straight through to control.
Right. And you left and drove to the incident.
Yes.
What communications equipment did you have with you?
The main scheme radio. We've got a mobilising radio. We kept the mobilising radio on in the car as I drove across.
Right. What about your is that your airwave radio?
The airwave, yeah, sorry, yeah.
And you also had your fireground radio with you?
The fireground's in the boot. I wouldn't start that up until I actually got to the incident.
Very good. Now, you have marked on your exhibit, your map, where you were when you first saw the tower. If I could just ask you to look at that. It's
Yes.
MET 000175596. And if you can just help us identify where it was that you parked by reference to this map.
Where it's got the first pumping appliance,
Yes.
I parked. Yeah, I parked just behind that, the first pumping appliance. I think I came under the Westway. That's when I first saw the fire.
Yes.
I tried to get round to the back of the incident to where the control unit was. I couldn't make it round the back, so I drove back to near the Westway, and I made my way down to the incident.
I see. And just if we can just pan out from that picture for the moment. You called that the first pumping appliance. You've got something on the southeast of the tower marked in a rectangle there. Could you just tell us what that says?
Whereabouts that, sorry?
Well, you've got the tower in the middle of the picture, and to the southeast of the tower,
Yes.
below right, it says something. You put an arrow to it, and there's some writing there.
Oh, sorry, no, if you go back, you know where the X is? Do you want to point on where
Yes.
the X is here? That's where I ended up parking the car.
Ah, right, fine.
The first pump and appliance, that was Alpha, that was Kentish Town's pump ladder.
Right. So
Yeah, that's where I parked.
did you realise that the first pumping... When you say first pumping appliance, what do you
The
mean?
first pump and appliance around the back of the incident.
Right. When you say first, do you mean the
That
first
was
to
the
arrive?
first. That was the first appliance that attended at the rear of the incident. Most of the incidents, the main pump's 20, and most of the appliances attended this road.
Right. What led you to think that the first pumping appliance parked there, where you've marked it?
Because I walked down the pathway and I followed it down to where it was parked.
Right.
I've only marked it the first pumping appliance because that was the first one that was actually made it to the west side of the property, of the tower block.
You mentioned Kentish Town a moment ago.
Yes, Kentish Town's pump ladder, I believe it was.
Right. Did you know that, in fact, the first pumping appliances at the scene were from North Kensington?
No, this was the first pumping appliance on the west.
Right.
The police officers, this is part of the interview, the police officers were asking me what was on this side, and I said, well, the first pumping appliance got down there was Kentish Town, so they marked it as the first pumping appliance, but it's the first pumping appliance on the west side.
Yes.
of the building. All the other appliances were on the east side, I believe.
Now, in your statement at page 5, in the third paragraph from bottom, you say you explain where you parked, and then you say this was at approximately 1:45 hours.
I believe the time should be wrong. It should be about, I think it was just past 2 o'clock.
Yes. Well, in fact, we've got your status 2 time in the short incident log as 2:12:58, and that's page 13 if you, if you need to see it.
That'll be the right time then.
Right, okay. Then outside the tower, page 6, third paragraph, you say that you describe how on arrival you heard or saw that the left-hand side, you say, was totally ablaze from about the 3rd or 4th floor.
Yes.
All the way up, or 3rd to 4th floor, all the way up to the top, with a lot of debris falling down. First of all, did you have any thoughts at that stage about compartmentation and whether it had been breached?
No, as I said before, the only experience I've got of full cladding fires, there's what I say, the one in France and one in Dubai, was the fact that they just burnt to the roof and then burnt away. They didn't enter the building because the construction didn't allow it to go into the building. So I expected, when I first saw this, I expected it to, part of me expected just maybe gets to the top, it'll just burn off. I did expect that on.
From what you could see at this
Yes.
time, did you see any signs of the fire having penetrated into the inside of the building at any point?
I was standing on the west side, and all I could see was down the edge of the north face.
Right.
And it was the north face burning from the top, from about the 3rd floor to the top. So I couldn't actually, I had no angle to see into the property, into any of the properties. I just saw it burning off.
Yes, I see.
And the debris that was coming down, it was like a debris field at the base of the North Tower. That looked, it was all cladding based. You could see it was bits of metal and various cladding products.
Okay. How far away from the tower were you at that point when you had those thoughts?
20, 30 metres?
Right. But on the west side?
Yes, on the west side.
Did you, at that stage, have any thoughts about what the advice should be to residents who are calling from inside, the stay-put strategy, and whether there was a need to effect an evacuation?
I was thinking about, I was thinking about it at the time, but my assumption would be that each individual property would be a self-contained property and could cope with with an external fire. I didn't expect it for the fire to go into the properties. We've had fires before in Lacanau where open windows can give access, and it was a very warm June morning, so I expected some unfortunate flats maybe to catch light with an open window, but I didn't expect every every single flat to be affected. No, I didn't.
Now, on page 6 of your statement, where we are still, if you look down to the 5th paragraph, you say, I could hear people saying that there were people that needed to get out.
Yeah.
Who were the people saying that?
As I walked down the... where I parked my car and I walked down next to the Westway, there's like a long... it's like a footpath. And on the right, there's 4-storey maisonettes. And on the left, there's a raised walkway, which goes adjacent to the railway lines, I believe. There was people up there on this walkway. They were just, it was very, very eerie. They were saying things like, oh, they need to get out, I can see somebody, it was a very, it was just strange. There was quite a few people, 20, 30 people maybe on the walkway. Because they were on the walkway higher than me, they could see the fire. Because I was walking next to the 4-storey, the maisonettes, I still couldn't see the fire at that time.
Right. And having heard them, from their vantage point, saying that people inside the tower needed to get out, did you think again about evacuation and the need to change the stay put policy?
It was always something to think about. No, I still had a firm belief that the tower would, the fire safety of it would stay intact. These separate dwellings would actually be fine.
And you walked over to the tower, and I think on in the 4th paragraph of your statement, you say. The 5th paragraph, rather, you say you could see a 135 ladder. Is that a 13.5 metre ladder?
Yeah, 135 ladder.
And you say it was pitched on a walkway on the east side. Do you mean the east side?
No, it's the south side,
right.
Subsequently.
Okay. Now, can I pick the matter up at your journey to the command unit? On page 11 of your statement, if you look at the 3rd paragraph down, you say, I then made my way outside to the command unit on Grenfell Road, which was the fire survival guidance unit, command unit, and crewed by a borough commander and a watch manager. I've marked on the map where the command unit was. If we can go back to the map that we looked at earlier on, which is your first exhibit, could you just point out the command unit?
Just where your marker is, just to the left of the marker.
Yes. So where it says Fire Survival CU.
Yes.
Marked on Grenfell Road. Right. And I think you've also marked just below that, to the south of it, another little rectangle on the corner of Bowmore Road and Grenfell Road.
Yes.
What is that?
That's another command unit, but that was the control command unit.
Okay.
I believe.
Yes. Now, when you first went to the command unit, which one of those two did you go to?
I had to walk past I was making for the command unit, which was the one in the red box, but I was stopped by the group manager when I got adjacent to the fire survival CU.
Right. Okay. So just so we're clear, the one at the bottom of the picture with the red box is CU8, and
yes.
the one above that CU7.
Yes.
Is that's
yeah,
as
that would
you
be
recall
right.
it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, why did you go to CU7 at that stage?
Well, it's just that I was walking. You had to walk past it to get to the main.
Right.
Our procedure is you have a board, and you have to, even though I was logged into the site into the instance with control because of book status 3, the board still should go to the command unit. So I was walking up to hand in my board, and I got adjacent to the CU7, and Group Manager Tom Goodall said he stopped me.
About what time do you think you arrived at CU7?
It would probably be after 3 o'clock.
After 3 o'clock?
I couldn't be certain, but well after 3 o'clock.
Okay, let's see if we can track it down.
Yeah, sure.
When you got to CU7, did you know who the incident commander was?
Yes.
Who?
It was Andy Rowe at the time.
Andy Rowe?
Yes.
Right, okay. Now, you say that there was a borough commander, you just looked at it in your statement, and a watch manager. Do you know who either of those was?
Tom Goodall was the borough manager.
Tom Goodall was that's the borough commander, is
Yes.
it? Right. And who was the watch manager?
I couldn't recall.
Does the name Daniel Merrick ring a bell with you?
No.
Right. Now, in the next paragraph on page 11, you say, the borough commander asked me if I was doing anything, and I said no. So I was instructed to go inside the tower to the lobby area and oversee 2 watch managers who were coordinating the FSGs. And then you explain what FSG is. Mm-hmm. Now, first of all, what did you understand when the borough commander, that's Group Manager Tom Goodall, as you've told us, what did you understand when he said that the watch managers were coordinating FSGs?
My understanding was they had a system in place, but there was only 2 watch managers at the time. So our general practice is to put more senior personnel in at high responsible areas. So he asked me to go down there and basically just talk to them, oversee them, give them assistance. But it sounded like there was a system already in place.
You say it sounded like.
It was, that's the reading I got from
right.
the briefing.
Okay, just following that up, you say my understanding was they had a system in place. Did Tom Goodall tell you what that system was?
I can't remember.
Did he explain anything about how fire survival guidance information was coming, first of all, into the command unit from the control room? Did he explain that to you?
He did, but the details I can't remember. I saw at the time the board, the whiteboard in the CU7, that had already been populated, and it was very, very neat. So it had all been, it was getting collated in that unit. So I could see it was getting done.
Yeah. Did you go on? Did you actually go on to CU7?
No, I didn't set foot on it.
So you didn't go up the steps into the vehicle, but from where you were standing outside it, you could. How clear a view did you have?
You can see the whiteboard very clearly.
Did you see who and how officers on the CU were receiving messages from control?
I didn't know. All I saw, I just saw Tom and one of the watch managers.
Right. Okay. Now, did you get any explanation from Tom Goodall about how fire survival guidance information was leaving that command unit and going into the tower?
He may have said, but I can't remember.
Right.
Sorry.
Did you see runners taking pieces of paper out of command unit 7?
There was no one there at the time when I was speaking to him.
Right. Did Tom Goodall tell you that anything about the means of communication at all with the fireground?
It was just go down and support these 2 watch managers. That's
Right.
the only thing I've got in my mind. It was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I made the statement about a year later, so that's the only thing I can remember.
I understand. Did Tom Goodall mention anything about a watch manager who was or had been collating fire survival guidance outside the tower on a car bonnet, or?
It wasn't on the car bonnet. They were still on the floor when I went past. I did see them.
Okay, well, we'll come to it.
I can't remember being specifically told about them by Tom.
Okay.
He probably did, but I can't remember.
Did Tom explain to you what the watch managers in the lobby were doing with the fire survival guidance information that they were receiving?
I can't remember again. No.
Now, in your statement on page 11, in the 3rd main paragraph, you say that, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a wrong reference, it's the 4th main paragraph. When you're describing FSGs, you say that they come in and they take as much information from them as possible and give them advice. And then it's the last sentence I'm interested in. Via mobile phone, they in turn communicate the information to the fireground, in this case the FSG command unit.
Yeah.
Do you mean that the control usually uses a mobile phone to communicate with the fireground?
I believe what I meant in that sentence is, when I've done it before, I've done FSG before, it's generally over the mobile phone because station managers all carry mobile phones, and it's a lot easier than getting involved with the fireground radios. I believe that's what I meant by that.
Right.
In this case, mobile phones weren't being used.
Now, let's just be clear. Used by the by control room or used by staff officers on the command unit? Which do you mean?
By anybody.
Right.
The fire survival guidance I've done in the past have only been small incidents, 3, 4, 5 people max, and everyone's demanding information. So it's a lot easier to phone people up on mobile phones if you've got station managers based there than it is to try and get on the radio, ask for information from watch managers. So in the past, we've generally done it with mobile phones.
Right. In your experience as it was prior to the night of Grenfell Tower, what was the highest number of fire survival guidance calls you handled or managed at a single incident? Do you remember? 5,
I believe.
5. And which incident was that? Can you recall?
It was an incident in a tower block in Kilburn. It was on Alpha 41 West Hampstead's ground. But what it was a shooter light. So there's lots of people calling, saying the trap, but there was no danger of fire spread or anything. So it was a lot easier. But the panic and the need for information from people at the incidents, from control, and from senior managers who are at the incidents, who are monitoring, is quite tremendous. The stress level is, when you get a fire survival guidance call, even just for 5 people, it's a very stressful and very noisy situation. People shouting. And that was with 5.
That was with 5. And when was that?
3 years ago, maybe.
So a couple of years or so before Grenfell.
Yes.
Just going back to this sentence in your statement about via mobile, they in turn communicate information to the fireground. I think you've said and clarified that actually the control room can use a mobile and the officers on the CU as well. Yeah,
that was a description of fire survival guidance that the people who had taken the statement asked of me, so I give them my interpretation of my experience of fire survival guidance rather than what happened on the night.
Right. Is the radio used by the control room to communicate FSG information?
They use every means possible.
Right.
Yeah, they've got handheld radios. They've got.
Still on page 11 of your statement, 3 paragraphs up from the bottom, you refer to an electronic system to record FSGs, and you say this is called the CSS. And you say I'm familiar with command units, but couldn't run one. I'm told they're not that reliable. Sometimes in a black spot it does not work, sometimes it will not log on. When you say I'm familiar with command units, do you mean familiar with CSS?
Because I'm a senior manager, I'm supposed to, my place at bigger incidents would always be on a command unit. So I have to be aware of what command units can do and can't do. The CSS is an electronic system based on the command unit, which has different files. And one of the files is a fire survival guidance file. As I say, I don't like using them. I'm more of a, I like to see it up front. The whiteboards is easier for me. Right. But it's a system that we can use. It wasn't being used this night.
If I've understood your statement right, when you say they are not that reliable, you're referring to the CSS rather than the command system, unit itself.
Because where we park and how we park, the density of London, it's difficult sometimes to get a good signal.
Yeah, I see.
That's what I meant, sorry.
Was it, to your knowledge, well known in the LFB at the time of Grenfell Tower that these CSS systems were not that reliable?
I don't know, I couldn't answer that.
Okay.
My experience of them is it's been a bit unreliable with me, that's all.
Okay. And you say, as you've just told us, in the next paragraph, you repeat the point that they are notoriously unreliable. However, I like using the manual method with pieces of paper. That's the way I've operated over the years. So a command unit which is using a whiteboard does not faze me. I think a lot of people would have some sympathy with that. But does that, when we break that down, does that mean that even when the CSS system is up and running, the officers on the command unit, such as yourself, would still record FSG information on pieces of paper?
There's a backup system. We've got the CSS, we can record on the CSS, and then we've got like a whiteboard encapsulated piece of paper as a backup. Generally, you'd always use the encapsulated paper because you have to annotate it so quickly. But it works on both systems, the CSS and the backup system.
Yes. And would it be right in thinking, therefore, from what you've just said, following it up, that the CSS isn't an alternative to pieces of paper? You would use both?
You can do, yeah. You can do if it's available.
Now, at the bottom of page 11 of your statement, in the last paragraph, you say that the command unit communicate the information to the bridgehead by way of handheld radio. I think that this method was used at Grenfell. When you say, I think this method was used at Grenfell, what do you think?
I just couldn't remember. That's why I made the statement. I can't remember.
Right. Did you see or hear or observe in any way FSG information being communicated to the bridgehead by radio?
I think I did, but I can't remember to be certain.
Right, okay. Now, I think talking in the first sentence in that paragraph about what's normal, when you say the command unit communicate the information to the bridgehead by way of handheld radio, are you telling us that's your normal, that's what would be normal?
That's what you'd expect, yeah. That's
right.
what I'd expect. So.
Okay. Have you ever experienced yourself a command unit using runners to pass paper fire survival guidance to the bridgehead instead of or in addition to using the radio?
As I said, when you get a fire survival guidance course, it's very chaotic. That time when I had the 5 people, no one was in danger, but there's people running everywhere because everyone demands information. I could see where it'd be relevant to use runners. In
that incident at Kilburn that you'd referred to, where there were only 5 FSGs, was radio and written FSG information used?
Yes.
Right. When you were told there were watch managers in the lobby who needed your assistance, and you were told that by Tom Goodall, what did you understand the purpose of having those watch managers there was?
It was just to pass on the information from the fire survival guidance calls to the crews, to ensure that crews actually acted on the fire survival guidance calls. That was my understanding.
So, in essence, was it like a liaison between those watch managers who were collating and giving instructions to the crews?
That's right, yes.
That was what you understood your role.
That's what I understood. No, and they were doing the liaison. I was going to go down there and support them in any way I could.
Right. Now, if we turn to page 12, we move, I think, to the topic of you're making your way back to the tower from the command unit. And you say in the second paragraph on page 12, near to there were a crew and watch managers fielding FSG calls. I did not speak to them, but they would have been speaking to people on the phone and passing the information on. In front of some open garages by the entrance was another body. Now, just looking at the first sentence there, near to there were a crew. Can you just clarify what the there is?
Near to the tower.
Right. Now, perhaps the best way of doing this would be to go back to your first exhibit in the
What's
map.
the sentence before that?
You say, perhaps I should have shown you this, I handed my nominal roll board in and made my way back to the lobby area via the covered walkway. I could see that a turntable ladder had been parked by the entrance. It was not working, and I've marked where it was on the map. Near to there were a crew and watch managers fielding FSG calls.
It was under there's like a covered walkway right adjacent to Grenfell Tower.
Right, well, let's just look at I wanted to show you your first exhibit, which was the map. So if we go to that, can you help us identify more precisely where on the map the watch manager and crew were?
We've got the X for handing over the body. Next door to it, there's an unused TL. It was in between the two, in between the circle with the X and in between the square. There was it was around about there.
Right. And when you went, you saw them.
That's right. Up there.
You mentioned earlier in your evidence this afternoon that you saw them on your way back to the tower. At that stage,
I walked past them. Yes.
Where were they? Under the walkway.
They were under the walkway. They'd had whiteboards on the floor. They were mobile phones. and they were making notes on the boards.
On the board. And the boards were what? What
The
kind
boards
of
that were on the floor, they had boards on the floor,
Right.
whiteboards.
Were they? Were they whiteboards or forward information boards?
Forward information boards, but yeah, I said whiteboard, you know, they were
Okay.
white and
Right.
forward
Now,
information
when
boards.
you saw them, are you able roughly, even roughly, to tell us what kind of time that was?
I really wouldn't, I'm sorry.
Okay. And how long after the briefing that you received from Tom Goodall on CU7 was that?
2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
To walk down the road
And when you saw them, did you stop and talk to them?
no, they were far too busy.
Right. How many of them?
4 people.
Were there?
I believe
4.
there was 4.
Right, okay. Could you see what they were actually doing apart from managing the paperwork in front of you? Could you see?
They were holding radios or phones to their ears,
Right.
and making notes on the. I didn't see what notes they were making, but they were making notes on the boards.
At that stage, did you notice any runners either coming to them from the CU with paper or going from them into the tower with bits of paper?
I didn't see anybody, no.
Right.
I don't recall seeing anybody, sorry. There was a lot of personnel running around in all directions, but no, I didn't notice anybody.
Did you consider how what they were doing, so far as you could see, fitted into the coordination of FSG calls that you were being asked to go and help with?
I didn't at the time. I just thought they were a separate unit, an older unit of dealing with FSG. That's what I assumed. They might have been there before the command unit set up, or vice versa. I don't know.
Right. You say you didn't at the time. Did there come a time when you did understand what they were doing?
No. When I was speaking to the 2 watch managers in the lobby, they were getting information. There was a lot of information they were getting. I assumed some of it was coming from them.
You assumed, you didn't
I
find
assumed.
out?
I didn't know. I didn't find
Okay,
out.
well, we'll come to that. Now, you move then into the ground floor lobby of the tower. And if you go to your statement at page 12 and look at the 4th paragraph, you say, that you thought it was about 3 a.m. Now, let me show you the paragraph, because it's not that clear. You say the run was only about 20 feet. I could see stuff falling down. It did not fall at any great speed. By now, I think it was about 3 a.m.
I think that's a wrong time, yes.
Right, what time would you put on that?
I wouldn't be able to put a time on it. I really wouldn't.
Okay. Now, at this point of your statement, it's not crystal clear what you're doing. You said in the paragraph before that you're prepared to run across to the main door. But are you're describing here, are you, your entry into the tower?
Yes.
In order to carry out the task that Tom Goodall had given you?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we have a time for when the bridgehead was moved down from the 3rd floor to the ground floor, Mr. Wolfenden, and that started at about, we think on the evidence we have so far, at about 3:08 in the morning. When you entered the tower, what did you see by way of movement of the bridgehead, if anything?
The bridgehead was fully up and functioning on the ground floor.
Right.
That's what I saw.
Okay.
The entry control boards and the senior officers were working from the ground floor.
They were already working with them?
Yes.
Right, okay. Do you know how long the bridgehead had been on the ground floor for when you entered the lobby?
No, I didn't ask.
Now, in the next paragraph in your statement, this is the 4th one from the bottom, you say, the entry control board, ECB, was set up in the ground floor lobby, whereupon I found the watch managers I was looking for. I now know them to be watch manager Glyn Williams from Fulham and watch manager Paul Watson from Hammersmith, and they had been there for about an hour or so before I arrived.
Yes.
That hour or so before you arrived, is that what they told you?
Yeah, I believe so, but I think that was including the time at the original bridgehead,
Yes.
which was on the 3rd floor.
Now,
That's what I took it to mean. They'd been not just in. They weren't in the lobby for an hour. They'd been at the lobby and the previous bridgehead for an hour.
right. Did you know, or did they tell you which of them, Watson or Williams, had been up to the Bridgehead?
No, they didn't say.
No. Now, we heard some evidence from Watch Manager Williams, when he came to give evidence here in July, that he wrote 0215 on the wall of the lobby on the left-hand side at the time when he started to receive FSG information. So
That's right, yeah, I saw that.
About an hour after that, just using that as a time
Okay,
mark,
you're probably right. Yeah,
would put you at about 3:15, which is after the Bridgehead had started
Yes.
to come down.
Yes,
Right.
it would.
Does that sound about right?
That
to
sounds
you?
about right, yes.
Okay. Now, we can, I think, do a little bit better than this so far. We've got some CCTV material showing Watch Manager Williams standing by the wall with two officers in white helmets. And Paul, could the witness please be shown INQ 0000253? Which we've also got, just in case it's tricky, at IAQ 303. We could use both, but that will work. Now, this has an adjusted time mark on it of 03:16:29, taken by camera 4 inside the lobby. Now, just to help you with this, Watch Manager Williams thought that the person to the left of him. Well, let me try it this way. Do you recognise the individual without the white helmet standing at the top of the picture pointing at the white wall?
Yeah, that's the Watch Manager Williams, is
That's
it?
Glyn
That's
Williams. Right. Good. Now, he said he thought the person to the left of him was Watch Manager Watson, and the person to the right was you. Do you think that's right?
Yes, that's probably right.
Right. Can you help us? Do you know what's happening here?
I don't know. He's pointing to the wall where there was some writing on the wall. He's probably explaining what he'd written down and what we were doing.
Right.
Or his processes.
Now, you say he's probably.
Probably.
Is that your recollection?
From looking at it, because I know that's where the writing was on the wall, we started annotating
Right.
that side of the wall. He's pointing to it, so I'm just assuming that.
Now, in your statement, still on page 12, at the bottom of the page, last paragraph, we just nip back to that. You say, the watch managers explained, it's the last paragraph, the watch managers explained that they were taking information from the FSG command unit and writing them on a wall to the left of where we were standing towards the smashed windows. If I can now ask you to look at INQ 304, and all these numbers have 5 zeros. This is a CCTV picture taken at an adjusted time of 03:23:08 from camera 3. And it shows a firefighter standing with what looks like papers in his hand. If you can just magnify that, Paul. On the left-hand side of the picture. No, left-hand side of the picture by the sign, which says Grenfell Community Room there. We can see
Crew manager.
there's a crew manager. You can tell it's a crew manager from the double black stripes on the helmet.
Yes.
Do you know who that was?
No.
Right. And what was that crew manager doing? Do you remember?
I don't know.
It looks as if he was standing with papers next to Watch Manager Williams writing on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's another officer without a helmet. Might that be, is that you? Is the question.
That looks like me, yes.
It looks like you. It looks like you from, yes. Yeah. In the statement, you referred to taking information from the FSG command unit and writing them on a wall. We can see the crew manager with what looks like slips of paper. Do you remember, having seen this picture, how information was coming to the wall, in what form it was coming to the wall?
I don't, I'm sorry. I know. I remember the watch manager had a radio, and he had a lot of slips of paper. I couldn't recall where the slips of paper came from.
Right.
I thought he was writing some of them down, but it could have been a runner.
Right. Did you see the crew manager or watch manager Williams transposing fire survival guidance information from pieces of paper onto the wall?
He started to, and then it got very chaotic.
Right. At what point did he stop?
Not long after, probably writing these down, maybe half an hour, 20 minutes after these.
Right.
At first he had time to write, and then after that there was no time to write, so there didn't appear to be any time.
Okay. Now, if you turn the page in your statement to page 13, we can take that picture down, and go to page 13 of your statement, third paragraph down. You say, Watch Manager Williams told me that they had a process in place in which Watch Manager Williams would receive the information via radio from the command unit outside. The information would be written on a piece of paper, chit, and handed to Watch Manager Watson. He was then handing the papers to individual crews as they queued up to go to the Bridgehead.
Yes.
Now, first, you say that the information would come in via radio from the command unit.
That's probably an assumption.
I
know he had a radio, but it's probably an assumption on my part that it was coming by radio.
Right. Watch Manager Williams, in his evidence, and I'm summarising it, but he talked about paper slips coming to him from runners.
Yeah. I saw the paper slips and I saw him collating them all, but
right.
I just assumed that a lot of it was him on the radio and him writing it down. I didn't realise they were coming through.
Right. You say you didn't realise. At what point did you realise?
I never did, obviously.
Did you ever see any runners delivering
I can't
slips
remember
of paper?
seeing anybody. The lobby area was really congested, really noisy. I didn't notice anybody.
You say in your statement that the information, as we've just seen, would be written on a piece of paper and handed to Watch Manager Watson.
Yeah.
And then he would then hand the papers to individual crews. Who do you know was writing the information on a piece of paper?
I don't know. As I say, it could be in these chits that are coming by runner. I assumed it was Watch Manager Williams.
Right, I see. And who was handing the chits to Watch Manager Watson? Did you see?
Watch Manager Williams would hand them to Watch Manager Watson. Watch Manager Watson would walk away, find a crew who hadn't been allocated the task, and hand the chit to the crew. Confirm the crew with the crew that with the details on it, floor, flat, people, how many people, and he'd give them the chit and then he'd walk away.
You saw him do that, did you?
It was very sorry. I don't think I did see him do it, but that's what was happening.
How did you know?
Because that's what they told me they were doing. As I say, the queue for people, it was very, very congested. He'd just take slips and disappear, and he would say he would go to the front of the queue and get the first crew that didn't have a job and allocate the job.
Right. So I see.
So I knew because he told me that's right.
That's what I wanted to find out. Okay, now, if you go... yes, when you say that Watch Manager Watson was handing pieces of paper to crews, where exactly was the Bridgehead located on the ground floor at that time when he was doing that?
The officers in charge of the Bridgehead and the ECB boards were located behind the glass wall. Do you know where the glass wall was and the glass door?
Yes.
On the ground floor?
Yes.
They were located the other side of the glass wall.
Right.
And the crews were asked to queue up along the glass wall and then get ferried through siphoned through the door, given the task, and they'd go.
Did you see a station manager or other officer of rank standing by the entrance, the glass door entrance, at the head of that queue, giving them instructions?
I think Matt Cook was there at the time. Matt Cook was in the area.
Right.
That's all I remember.
What about? Do you recall the involvement?
I don't know what he was doing. I automatically assumed that he's part of the ORT team, which is part of the team that monitors operational incidents. I just thought he was doing his role as an ORT officer.
Right, I see. Matt Cook,
Operations Review Team.
ORT.
Yes. I assumed he was just doing that role.
Do you remember the involvement of Station Manager Nick Myatt?
I can't remember seeing Nick Myers at the Bridgehead.
Do you know him?
Yes, I do know him now.
Okay.
I might have, but I can't remember.
Do you remember seeing Watch Manager Watson go through the door and talk to the entry control officers about the deployments?
I don't recall seeing him go through.
Right. Do you know if Watch Manager Watson had any system or method for determining what kind of BA crew should be deployed in response to a particular fire survival guidance call, whether EDBA or SDBA?
He didn't pass that on to me, no. I think he just basically said he was going to the next crew.
Right. Now, in your statement, still on page 13, in the next paragraph, 4 paragraphs down, you say, my understanding was that he, that's I think Watch Manager Watson, should have been informing the officer in charge of the FSGs, who would in turn commit crews. Who is the he there? Is that
Watson? Watch Manager Watson.
Right. Who was the officer in charge of FSGs, as you described it there?
My understanding is that Watch Manager Watson should have been going to the Bridgehead and talking to the committing officer. I probably got that wrong. Officer in charge.
The committing officer.
Yes.
Would that just help me with in general terms who that would be normally? Would that be
the officer in charge behind the glass door? I believe. I thought at first it was Group Manager Welsh, but it turned out to be Group Manager Goulburn.
Right. You say you thought at first, but it turned out. Did you yourself undertake an investigation as to exactly who was in charge of the Bridgehead at that time?
This was when I first got there.
Yes.
No.
Right.
I was told shortly afterwards that Group Manager Welsh was the Ops Commander.
And just exploring this a little bit further, when you say that Watch Manager Watson should have been informing the officer in charge of the Bridgehead, are you saying that Watch Manager Watson wasn't actually doing that?
The process they put in place, which they said was working, didn't go via the officer in charge of the Bridgehead, but they said it was a process that was working, and it was such huge numbers of FSG and flats to search, and such huge confusion. He said the system was working. They were using the system on the 3rd floor at the original Bridgehead, and when it came down, they automatically assumed it was still working, and they carried on with the same system.
I follow.
And because the system was, they said the system was working, I took their word for it and left it at that.
And was there a problem with that system? To your knowledge?
The only problem I foresaw was that the officer in charge who's committing crews to go upstairs, people are already turning up with jobs. I've got to go here, I've got to go here. I did explore this with both the watch managers, and they said, no, it's okay, that it's been working okay.
Okay, well,
so a crew would line up and say, just before you get a job, hold on, I've got my FSG, here's this chit of paper, I've got to go to this floor. And then they'd go to that floor. That's their job, they would go off to that floor.
When you first arrived to do the job that Tom Goodall had given to you, did you go to the Bridgehead and find out for yourself how fire survival guidance, or how deployment instructions based on fire survival guidance was actually getting to the Bridgehead? No. Is there a reason why you didn't do that?
It was difficult access to it. It was behind these glass doors. I think it was just an access thing. The glass doors were there, and then the watch managers already said the system's fine, it's working,
right. And
they were quite happy for it to carry on.
Right.
I took their word for it.
So what was your assumption about what Richard Welch or Pat Goulburn were actually doing by way of instructing crews to do deployments at that stage? What was your ability to assume they were doing?
I had no assumption over it. I believed what the watch manager was saying. The jobs were going up to the crews, and the crews were acting on the jobs.
I see. So essentially, your assumption, would this be... would I be summarising your evidence right, that your assumption at the start was that the instructions to individual crews were being given to them by Watch Manager Watson, and they were essentially being waved through by Group Managers Welch and Goulbourne?
Yes.
Right. Now that understanding obviously changed at a later stage, or did it not?
Yes.
It did. We'll come to that. Now, on page 13 of your statement, in the 6th paragraph down from the top.
Are we going to come back to page 13, Mr. Millett?
I suspect we probably are now.
Well, there's a sentence that I'd quite like to understand
Yes,
better
of
than
course.
I do at the moment. About 2/3 of the way down, perhaps a bit less. You say there, Mr. Wolfenden, they said that the system was working, and so I started to jot things down and populate the wall. Now, we've seen photographs of the wall. I think I would like to know what you say you wrote on the wall. So
We are good.
we're coming to that.
Yes. And if we
Well,
don't,
you
then,
get to it in your own time, so long as you do get to it.
well, let's answer. Let's. I'm concerned that I might not. So let's cover that now. Would you like to answer the chairman's question? I can do
Well, I
it
think
by
you'll need to
reference
see,
to certain
you'll need to see the
photographs.
correct picture, for which I don't have under my hand.
right.
There's no doubt you do.
Well,
It's a
I do.
necessary reference.
Yes. Can I ask you please to be shown MET quadruple zero 5774.
I think it's fair to say, isn't it, that this photograph was taken quite late in the day.
Yes.
Yes.
So it won't necessarily have looked like that in its entirety when you saw it. But
No.
subject to that,
Yes. Well, there are a number of different photographs, and I'm happy to show you a different one. The chairman is right. This was taken
Yes.
at
that's
some
right.
stage in the daytime because we can see sunlight coming
Yeah.
through the south windows in the tower. But we can look at another one as well. Perhaps we should have both up at the same time, just to answer the chairman's question and some of my own on the same point. MET 000175797. I think that's the same photograph, or taken at the same sort of time. One is a more close-up and clearer version of
The
the
one's
other.
the full wall.
Yes, exactly.
The one on the left, the one on the right-hand side is the full wall, or appears to be the full wall.
Now, at this initial stage, where were you getting the FSG information that you started to write down
From Watch Manager Williams.
from Watch Manager Williams? So how was he communicating that to you? Was he...
He was getting the chits, and I said, just call them out and get the chits. Well, these pieces of paper that you've got, call them out, and I'll write them down.
Right.
And the right hand, so yeah, I'd say about 50% of that I probably wrote, maybe more.
Yes. Now, the one on the right, the photograph on the right, I think is your exhibit, because you've exhibited it to your statement. But it may be better to look at the left-hand picture, because it is a bit clearer. Now, I just want to explore with you what you wrote down and when, if we can. Let me give you something first by way of a guide. It was Watch Manager Williams' evidence that he wrote the middle list first. So
Yeah.
if you see FSG Act 215, that central column is what he wrote down
Yeah.
first, starting with BA, tick, F, 205, and there's a 23rd, and then UK. And then he said that when that space was filled up, he started on the list on the left-hand side, and that was the list you then also wrote on with him.
Yeah, I probably just carried on with it.
Is that consistent with your memory?
Yes, that's
Thank you.
consistent.
Now, he thought, and again, I'm just giving you a potted version of what he's told us, he thought that the point at which you started writing on the list could have been for the entry 173.20.2p. Now, we need to expand that a little bit, but it's about 2/3 of the way down
That's
that
right, yeah. That's
left-hand
probably
column.
correct.
Well, I've told you what he said. In your own mind, casting your mind back, what do you say about that?
Yeah, that's probably correct, yes.
Okay, looking above, in that same column of figures, do you see anything else that could be your handwriting, do you think?
Not that I recognise now.
Do you remember inserting any numbers between the numbers that Glyn Williams had written in that column?
No.
Okay.
I didn't alter anything that was already there. I just carried on with the same format.
Okay. Now, do you have any memory of where you might have got that information from?
I believe it was from Watch Manager Williams.
Again, him reading out from a chit, is that right?
Yeah.
As you told us before, right. Now, let me ask you to look at a document which you may not have seen before, which is LFB *01968. And I'll tell you what it is. It's a collection of control information forms and other documents. And I'd like to go to page 44, if I could, please. And also to 45. Now, 44 is marked at 0321. So I think on what you've told us about the time you would be there. Flat 123, floor 15, 113, floor 14, line gone dead. Additional information, call from CU. Now, if you go back to the wall and the reference *0005774, Mr. Documents Director, just have that on at the same time. Well, perhaps it doesn't matter. If you look at that, you'll see that the information transcribed on the top of the left-hand list, if we just expand that a bit, says 11314, and there's some writing next to that. Can you help us with that? It may not be all writing, but you could perhaps expand that even further. I think it says line dead.
Yeah, line dead.
Line dead. And then 12315, line dead. Now, those are before the entries that you tell us you think you made, but as a time marker, does that help us time when you think you started writing on that wall?
It could be, yeah, it could be.
Right. Do you remember receiving in your own hands forms such as are filled out there?
Not at that stage, no.
Did you later?
Yes.
At what point?
When it was confirmed that the fire brigade weren't going above the 11th floor.
Right.
Or the 10th floor.
Right. You say 11th floor.
Later on, I took the chits to Group Manager Welsh and handed the chits to him.
Okay. Right. It's that event. We're going to come to that.
Yeah.
Right. Now, just continuing with the wall, in terms of the various markings on the wall, Watch Manager Williams gave evidence that the BA, if we just look at that column of marks in what looks like the middle set of data on the wall, he said that it indicates that he had passed the information to Watch Manager Watson, who had confirmed that it had been passed to a BA crew, who had then taken it to the Bridgehead. That was his evidence, and I'll just give the transcript reference for our own purposes. It's 30th of July 2018 at pages 104 to 106, so we can find it later. That is, in essence, what he said. Is that consistent with your recollection?
Yes, probably
Right.
would be, yeah.
And was there any system in place for checking where the Bridgehead was in fact sending the crews at the stage which you started writing?
No.
No. So, again, was this just an assumption that what Watch Manager Watson was giving the crews was being acted on by the crews?
Yeah, they assumed that what they'd started the hour or two before it, whatever it was,
Right.
was continuing. That was the assumption.
Now, sticking with this picture, you can see that the BAs have, in some cases, ticks next to them. Do you remember who wrote those ticks there?
I don't. It could have been me.
It could have been you.
It could have been me, yeah, but
Right.
I don't remember.
Okay. You explain in your statement, if I could just take you forward to page 15. And this is your statement where you're actually giving information about this photograph. You say in the second last paragraph, you say, on the photo, some of the flat numbers have ticks next to them. That indicates that crews have been sent by us to that flat. When you say sent, does that mean sent, or does it mean that they successfully reached the flat?
I'm assuming Watch Manager Williams had actually found a crew to give the chit to. It doesn't confirm that they'd gone to the flat.
Right. And then if we can just follow that through a little bit, 2 paragraphs up on page 15 in your statement, you say that in the second line, crews were then to feed information back to those controlling the boards with their results. And if people were found, a line would be put through the information to show that the task was complete. There were not many lines being put through. You go back to the picture, the photograph, 5774. We can see lines through 1 or 2 of the flats in the middle column.
73.
Did you put lines through there?
I can't remember. I may have.
In the left-hand column, we can see lines put through flat 73 twice.
Yep.
Can you help us with that? First of all, who put those lines through there? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Okay. Would that be different? Would the elimination of a piece of FSG with a line be the same as a tick or different from a tick?
My understanding would be that those people were out. There was no longer a need for... Right. So you put a line through it so it couldn't be repeated. It was probably repeated, maybe Mr. Williams put the first 3 down, I started again and we just duplicated a chit. Possibly.
Okay.
But my understanding, if a line went through it, the BA crew had actually got there or the people had come out. Right.
So that would tend to reinforce the idea that the tick meant deployed but not successfully deployed.
I think what there was a lot of confusion and a lot of duplication of information around that period. And there was some doubt whether crews had actually been given a task. So the ticks were, I believe the ticks, in my mind, the ticks were that we've definitely give this one a task. We confirmed this one's got a task. How that was confirmed, I can't remember.
Now, in your statement on page 15, at the bottom of the page, you say, if a crew was sent to a floor but for whatever reason did not get there, the system was that they would tell the bridgehead, who would in turn tell my watch managers, and a crew would be redeployed. But as I've mentioned, often this wasn't happening.
No.
Now, was that information, in other words, failure of a deployment and the fact of redeployment, recorded anywhere on the wall, the photograph of which we've got on the screen?
Again, I don't know. I can only assume that that's what the ticks were for. Somebody hadn't gone in the first place and we'd redeployed somebody else. But again, that's probably an assumption. It was...
Do you know?
I don't know. No,
right.
Sorry, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's the case.
What was the means of communication by which you say the bridgehead would tell or pass that information on to the watch managers?
It'd be verbally to Watch Manager Watson when he was allocating the tasks. That's my assumption. It would go through to Watch Manager Watson.
How much of this paragraph is your assumption? And how much of it is what you actually saw or observed on the night?
It's probably an assumption.
Right.
A lot of it's an assumption.
Right.
That's what I would have expected to happen. Some feedback to come back.
Right. I mean, did you actually see for yourself anybody at the bridgehead, Pat Goulbourne or Richard Welsh, actually telling Watch Manager Watson about a failed deployment and a redeployment?
I can't remember. No, I can't remember that happening.
Okay. Going back to the picture 5774, if we can, because the clearest version we've got. Do you remember what BA meant in both columns, in the middle column and also on the left-hand side?
I just assumed it's a BA crew was sent.
you say again, you assume, but do you have a recollection?
I've got a recollection, no, sorry.
Okay. And why would you have a tick and a BA?
I said before, we'd allocate a job, and there's a lot of confusion over the double, going back and trying to trace where the jobs had gone. You know, you go back to the side of the board where you've got 2 73s, which are crossed off. So we went back and tried to clarify whether people had got jobs. So the ticks were, I believe, to clarify that a crew had received that chit and was on there, it was allocated that task.
Yes.
It was like it's a way of double checking.
Right.
Because it did get very confusing for a small for a period of time.
Right. Now, I'll see if I can help you out here. Watch Manager Williams's evidence was that a tick next to a BA, where you had both, meant that BA wearers had been committed in response to a particular FSG call and had successfully reached the relevant floor. That's his
I wouldn't know
recollection.
about the relevant floor now. I wouldn't know.
Right.
It might be his understanding. It wouldn't be my understanding.
That's as I thought. Now, in your statement at page 15, in the third paragraph from the bottom, I'm sorry to dot around on that page, you say that you put a line through information, and that meant the flats had been searched and were clear. You've told us that you can't remember who put those lines through, but where were you getting that information from? Do you remember?
It's just what we've done in the past. When we do TDAs, when we do things, Lacknall House was the same thing. They put a line through when we confirmed that property had been, that dwelling had been searched. I just assumed it was the same thing.
Just following that up a moment, this whole system of transcribing fire survival guidance information onto a wall within the building, is that something that happened at Lacknall House?
Yes.
Is it common practice to do that where there's more than one FSG call?
Whatever resources you've got, and when you've got that many calls,
right.
A wall's a lot better than a forward information board, which are only about this small.
Yes. At the incident you attended where you had 5 FSG calls, the Kilburn incident you told us about, did you use the walls for
No.
FSG?
The incident was closed down very, very quickly because it was confirmed it was a shooter light, there was no danger. So basically the information went back, just tell the people, there is no danger of fire, and we're, the next next half hour, whatever, we will ventilate the properties, or ventilate the common areas. So there was never a danger. We never really set the system up.
Were you at Lacknall House? Were you at the incident?
No, not the incident. No.
Had you ever attended an incident where you'd actually used the walls to record FSG information?
No, this was the first.
The first one. So going back to the answer you gave earlier on about it would be normal to put a line through. Is that an established practice in your experience?
That's what I would assume. If there's a line through it, that flat or that task has been completed.
Right.
If there was a tick next to it, or if there's an asterisk, or it wouldn't mean that it'd mean that the task would still be open.
I see.
So it's my assumption that a line through would be the task completed.
Right. There's
very few got lines through them.
Yeah. Now, if you go back, and I'm sorry to ask you to keep dotting around in this statement, but if you go back to page 14 of your statement, you describe the system, the chit system, and you say in the second paragraph on that page, in the second sentence, on their return, the crews should have told the Bridgehead what they had done. Yeah. And then you say this in the next paragraph, my assumption was that the crews were told that if they could not get to the floor they were tasked with, they were to tell Pat Goldborn or the ECB and tell them what they'd done. Now, when you say there that it was your assumption, did anybody tell you that this was the arrangement in place for debriefing crews?
No.
Did you personally debrief any crews that you saw coming past you? Did you see watch managers Watson or Williams debrief any crews?
We spoke to crews. We didn't debrief any crews. We spoke to crews because Mr. Watson and Mr. Williams, watch manager Watson and Williams, they were after had their tasks being allocated, had their tasks being completed. So as crews were coming out and as casualties were coming through, they were trying to get, look, where did you come from? If it was a casualty, where did you come from? If it was a crew, what flat did you get to, or where did you get to? Most of the people coming out, especially as it got later and later, were in a dreadful state, and most of the crews were in a dreadful state and unable to really give us much information. It's more to do with the state of the crews and the state of the people leaving the property, leaving the tower block. It was more to do with that than what it was to do with, it wasn't an effectual debriefing system. The crews, the people were just really in a bad state. A lot of them were unable to talk.
Yes.
But we were trying to get to, what flat, especially the casualties. What flat have you come from? Where have you been? And things like that. But the communication was virtually zero.
Right. Were there cases where you could obtain that information from the crews or the casualties?
Not really, because it was a bridgehead. It was a staging area to throw crews up, to ferry personnel through, fresh personnel. They wanted the people in this, the used crews and the casualties out of the property as soon as possible, I suppose. And they just basically went straight through and out of the building to the triage centre, which was round the corner.
Do you remember any occasion when you did succeed in getting?
I think 73 might have been an occasion when we got a confirmation that
It was clear.
there was a lady came out and a gentleman came out and they did shout the name of the flat or the number of the flat. But as you say, there wasn't many lines through because we just couldn't get the information. But the ones we did get information, we did try and.
Right, and you would try and record. You would record that on the wall, would you?
Yeah, we'd try and record it on the wall.
Right. Okay. Now. We turn to a slightly different topic, which is a new system, the arrival of a new system for managing FSGs. In his live evidence to the inquiry, Watch Manager Williams started talking about a new system for collecting FSG information that you'd all implemented. And I want to ask you a bit about that. Before I do, perhaps this is the appropriate time to ask you, do you need a break or are you comfortable to continue?
Well, I was going to ask you, we've been running for an hour and 25 minutes.
Yes. I'm happy to take a break.
Would this be a convenient point?
It would. For me, it would. I'm keen that the witness is also happy with that.
And others too who might like a break. So
That's true.
I think we'll take a break now, Mr. Wolfenden, only for 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. And we'll start again at 3:20. Is that right? If you'd like to go with the usher. Right. Right, 3:20 then, please.
Who wrote that?
Yes, could you ask Mr. Wolfenden to come back, please? Thank you. All right, Mr. Wolfenden, ready to carry on?
Yes, good.
Mr.
Thank you.
Wolfenden, thank you for coming back. Just before the break, I was about to put to you some evidence we've had in the past about a new system of communicating FSG information to the Bridgehead. Watch Manager Williams told us in his evidence, and the transcript reference, I should just say, is 30th of July at page 153. And I'm summarising, but what he said was that under this new system, which started at about 4 a.m., you had a direct line of communication with the command unit, CU7, by radio. And that he would then transcribe the information that you were getting over the radio onto the wall. Generally, is that consistent with your recollection?
It sounds plausible, but I can't remember.
Right.
That's why I keep on, when I was give the statements in June this year, I kept on saying that the radio, we used radio. I think that's probably where it comes from. So
Right.
yeah, it could have been there.
Can I ask, let's see if we can do this by reference to some pictures and see if the pictures trigger a recollection that way. Can I ask you please to be shown INQ 305. Now, we might be able to get a more enlarged version of this, but this is a CCTV picture taken on camera 4 at an adjusted time of 4:03:05, and it shows Watch Manager Williams standing with his back to the what I can call the FSG wall, talking to a crew manager. And then, can you identify you in that picture?
Yes, I'm on the radio.
You're on the radio, right. What were you doing on the radio?
I don't know. Probably communicating to the command unit.
Right. Do you know who that crew manager was?
No, I don't recognise them.
Did you have discussions with him?
I can't remember.
Right. If we could look at the next picture, which is 306, we can see this is taken camera 4 at an adjusted time of 04:03:45. Can we see you in that picture? As a clue, somebody is talking to
That looks
Watch
like
Manager
me,
Williams.
yes.
Looks like you. And again, are you on the radio there, do you think?
Well, one of us is. I think it looks like Mr. Williams on the radio, but I can't tell.
Do you remember handing your radio to Watch Manager Williams?
Oh, that crew manager to the left, yeah, that's a crew manager from Whitechapel. I can't remember handling the... Sorry, you asked me who the crew
Right.
manager was. I can't remember who he's talking to now. I assume it's all with the command unit from the FSJ.
Right. Do you remember whether you handed your radio to Watch Manager Williams?
I don't
or-
remember. I really don't remember.
Right.
I might have.
You don't remember the crew manager from Whitechapel's name?
It's... no, slip my memory. I do know him, but...
Right.
No, it's
I'm not
gone.
going to stand
Sorry.
here and try and prompt you until I have something to prompt you with. We can look at the next picture, 307. We can see Watch Manager Williams there in his customary wall position with what looks like a... Well, what was he holding? Do you remember? In his
I
hand?
can't remember.
No. Now, can you identify you in that picture?
Yeah, I'm standing in the middle.
Right. And just to say, this is camera 4 at an adjusted time of 04:03:53. You're in the middle. What are you holding?
A pad.
What's on the pad?
I don't know.
What would you be using a pad for at that point in the night?
Making notes. I don't know what notes I would be making.
Did you ferry written FSG information in paper form into the Bridgehead from the wall?
Not from the bridge. Not into the. I don't recall. I could have written information down on the pad, but I don't recall doing it. Sorry.
Right. Do you remember at this stage whether you actually went into the bridgehead past the glass wall?
I remember speaking to Group Manager Goldboom on an occasion, but I can't remember where. I assumed it must have been round the back of the glass wall because I don't think he didn't come the other side for quite a while.
No, we'll come to that in a moment,
Yeah.
just because I think we might be able to help with that a bit. Before we do, just moving on with this exercise, if you turn please to 308. INQ 308. This is camera 4, adjusted time of 04:05:38. Can we see you in this picture?
Yes, I'm drawing on the wall.
And what are you drawing on the wall?
I can't remember. Must be FSG details.
Yes. And what are you? Where from? Where are you transcribing?
I really don't know.
from?
It could have been from a radio, could have been from a chit of paper. I don't know.
What are you holding in your left hand, do you think?
Do you think that looks like a radio? I don't know.
Can we enlarge the picture, Paul, please? No, other way around. We just enlarge there. That doesn't really help that much, but
It looks like a radio,
right.
or it could be a pad.
Do you remember receiving messages over the radio, FSG messages over the
I
radio?
really don't.
Right.
Sorry.
And can I just ask you, sorry, while we're on that picture, keep that picture there. I'll just try something with you if I can. Can I ask you to be shown again MET 5774? See if we can...
So it's underneath the rubbed out patch.
Sorry?
It looks like I was writing underneath the rubbed out patch.
Well, I was about to ask you that.
I think it is.
There you can see the rubbed down patch. Looking at both those pictures simultaneously on the screen, do you think you can help us with what you were writing down?
If you could
at that
increase
moment?
the magnification on the right hand one.
On the right hand one? Okay.
Yeah. Where the box is and the writing underneath the box.
I see. Does this increase the magnification
That looks
there?
good, yeah.
Right. I see. So what? Just to repeat your answer, what on that right hand picture do you think you're writing down?
I think it might have been that Watch Manager Glenn Williams has left the Bridgehead. I think it could be that one. I think it's too far down to be the box.
This is, if you go to the photograph on the left-hand side, we can see that he's still there.
Yes.
And it's an adjusted time of 04:05:38, whereas you've got Watch Manager G. Williams left Bridgehead at 04:30.
Yeah.
So in light of that, I just question your last answer. Would you like to have another think about it?
Mr. Williams got a phone call from his wife. He had to go. It's around that time. But the things above it, 7th, 4th floor, 11th floor, I don't remember writing them down.
Do you know whose handwriting that is within the box?
No, I don't put a line through me sevens. I don't think it's mine.
You don't think it's yours?
No.
Do you remember a box being there?
Not for sure. It must have been there because I wrote beneath it.
Right.
But I don't know who wrote that one in.
Okay.
It wasn't me, I don't think.
Right. Okay. Well, we've tried, I think, our best with that. But I wonder if we've got one more thing. I don't quite give up. If we go to MET 000157, sorry, 17597 for the right-hand photograph instead, I just want to. Yes, that, in fact, what we've got there will do. Looking at the writing underneath the smudged bit and below the bit about Watch Manager Williams leaving, do you think there's any information there which would tally with what we see you writing on the wall in the left-hand picture?
If you expand it, I'll probably be able to.
Yes, let's expand
Tell
it
you.
a bit more. Try that.
No, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't make that out very well.
All right. Well, thank you for
Sorry.
for trying to assist us. Now, if I can go on to the next photograph at 311. This is camera 4 again, and the adjusted time for this picture is 04:16:50. Now this shows Watch Manager Williams and Watch Manager Watson on radios. We can see them, and you with something in your hands.
Yeah, I was writing down something on a notepad.
Right. Now, can you describe what's happening in that picture? What are you doing?
I'm writing down something, that information's coming in.
Right.
It could have been fire survival guidance calls, I don't know. I can't remember, sorry.
Okay.
It probably was.
And was this the time that the messages, or around this time, that messages started coming in to Watch Manager Williams and Watson by radio directly from the command unit?
It looks like that, yes.
Right. Roughly.
Yeah.
And do you remember whether it was both of them, Williams and Watson, or only one of them at a time taking messages by radio from the command unit?
I can't remember.
Okay. Can you explain whether this system that we can see in operation here differed from the system you found when you first arrived in the lobby when the Bridgehead was there?
We're still getting information, writing it on a chit and hopefully passing it on. So the only difference in the system was where the information came from, I assume.
Right.
So it came via radio, and the other system, I don't know where it came from, as I said before.
Right.
Probably by runners, but I don't know.
I see. Okay. And these radios, were they what radios were they?
Handheld radios, fireground radios.
So fireground, not airwave.
No, fireground.
Right. And was there? Do you recall any difficulties that either Watch Manager Williams or Watch Manager Watson were experiencing in receiving communications?
If there would have been difficulties, we would have tried another system. So it was probably working fairly okay.
Right. Did you or either of those two officers tell anybody at the Bridgehead that you were adopting a new approach in the way you were receiving information from
Not that I recall,
the
no.
command unit? No, okay. Now, in his evidence earlier in July to the inquiry, Station Manager Daniel Egan told us that you were acting as a conduit, he said, of FSG information coming from the command unit to the base of the tower.
Yeah,
Would that be an accurate description of your role at this point?
Probably, yes.
This point being about 4:16 in the night. Right. Now, can I then ask you to look at a document? I think we can take this photograph off the screen and look at LFB 0001929. And this was exhibited to Watch Manager O'Keefe's witness statement, and we explored it with him and with Watch Manager Watson.
Yeah, that looks like my handwriting.
Now, what's your handwriting?
Most of it does. The sevens, I don't cross sevens.
Right.
Yeah, that looks like mine. And it's probably from that notepad you just said.
Now, that's helpful. His evidence, Watch Manager Williams' evidence was that these documents were from the time that you were operating what he called the new system, you taking FSG information directly from the command unit through the radio, or with them on the radios. There are two different handwritings there. We've got the two slips on the top left. That's your handwriting, is it?
Yeah, it appears to be. I don't cross my sevens.
Right. And then the one on the very far right and the four on the bottom. Are those yours?
It looks like, yeah.
Right. And do you remember seeing the other two, which are not your handwriting?
No.
Don't appear to be. Okay.
No, sorry.
Watch Manager Watson said that the third and fourth boxes at the top were his handwriting,
Okay.
and he thought the rest could be yours. It sounds as if the rest are yours.
It looks like it is mine, yes.
Okay. Now, the list of flats that we see on these little chits appear to be grouped by floor number. This was that a new system? Well, let me ask it this way. At what point, when you were involved, did grouping FSG information by floor number start?
Probably around about this occasion then. That's the only I can assume.
Right, I see. And did anybody tell you to start grouping FSG information by floors, or was this something that you came up with?
I believe the information came across from the command unit, so I would assume the command unit were grouping it.
I see. You say you assume, but do you actually have a recollection?
I don't know for certain, no.
Right, okay.
If I was writing it down in that order, that would be the order it would come over the radio. So I assume it'd be the command unit.
I see, okay. What did you do with these slips of paper?
I really can't remember. I can't remember, sorry.
Because Watch Manager O'Keefe says that he found these in his tunic at the end of the night. So they got to the Bridgehead somehow. Do you remember how?
I don't, I'm sorry, no.
You didn't retain them.
No.
So you must have given them to you must have given them to somebody.
I assume so, yes.
But you don't know.
No, I don't remember.
Right. Did you have any direct discussions, from your recollection, direct discussions with Watch Manager O'Keefe at the Bridgehead, at or after about this time, say 4 a.m?
Yes, I can't remember.
Now,
sorry.
Can I take you to your statement and turn to a slightly different subject? At page 17, in the second paragraph, well, I'll start at the first. Actually, I probably ought to start at the foot of page 60, just to give you the full context. You say in the second last paragraph, the crews were receiving different information. Sorry, second last paragraph. Crews were receiving different information by the time they got to the ECB and were being told to fight fire as a priority from what I'd heard. When Watch Manager Watson found out what was happening, he told Watch Manager Williams and myself. Watch Manager Williams went to the Bridgehead and the situation became quite emotional. And then you say, Watch Manager Watson said to Group Manager Welch, "You're not following this," the system he was using, and Welch responded by saying, "You're not committing crews, we commit crews." Watch Manager Williams was told to back off. There seemed to be miscommunication over the top of the next page. Yeah. There seemed to be a miscommunication in the ECB, but in that the ECB were telling crews to fight the fire, whereas FSG watch managers were trying to find people. We were told that crews had not been doing FSG calls for the last hour. It was a communication breakdown and got very verbally heated between Watch Manager Williams and Group Manager Welch. Now, I just want to explore a little bit of that evidence. I've read it all to you, so you've got the full, or most of the context. Going back, if I can, to page 16 of your statement. You say in the middle of that page that it soon became obvious that information wasn't being fed through, and this led up to this discussion. Starting with that, how was it obvious that information wasn't going through to the Bridgehead?
I assume when we got told that the FSG, the FSGs weren't getting acted on.
Who told you that? Do you remember?
It was a conversation with either myself and Mr. Williams, Group Manager Welsh. I assume it came from Group Manager Welsh.
Right.
I assume.
You assume. You don't remember, is that what you're telling
I'm
us?
trying to remember. Yeah, I think it was Group Manager Welsh said we haven't been, for the last hour, we haven't been going above the 11th floor.
Right. Now, you say, as a result, this is the paragraph I started reading to you, Group Manager Welch had made the decision that no BA crews were to go above the 10th floor, whilst we were handing chits to crews, ultimately we had no control over what the committing officer, Welch on the Bridgehead, was actually doing. Now, at what point did you discover that although you were handing chits to crews, the committing officer, Group Manager Welch, wasn't necessarily simply waving crews through without...
With that conversation with Mr. Williams and I was standing there,
Right.
and Mr. Welch and myself.
So, let's see if we can time this. Did you, first of all, did you hear this discussion? You were actually party to it, were you?
I must have been, yes.
Right. Now, let's see if we can time this with you in it. Can I ask you first to be shown INQ 332? INQ 332. Now, this is, yes, a photograph taken on camera 2 with an adjusted time of 03:40:20. Now, I'm not sure that we see you in this picture. Can you just confirm one way or the other for us?
No, I can't see myself now.
Do you happen to know? Well, first of all, help us where this is. I think this is.
This is behind the glass door and
Yeah.
the glass barrier at the base of the stairs.
And this is where the Bridgehead was at that time.
This is where the bridgehead was set up, yeah.
Right. Now, I think we can identify Luisa de Silva there in the photograph in the bottom left-hand corner. Do you know who was kneeling down pointing at one of the ECBs?
No, it would have been another watch manager, I believe, but I can't remember.
I think I can identify Brian O'Keefe standing as one of the two officers on the left.
Yeah.
There. Who was on his right, you know? Or his left, our right, looking at the picture?
I don't know, sorry.
You don't know. Now then, what I want to focus on, really on this picture, is the group of individuals on the right-hand side. First of all, who are the two individuals facing us, do you know?
That's Group Manager Goldblum and Richard Welch.
Right. And who is it with his back to us, do you know?
It looks like it's Watch Manager Watson.
Yeah, Watson,
Looks like, yeah.
Right. We can do better by 6 seconds. If you go to 333, same camera. This is another picture taken at 03:40:26. So, as I say, 6 seconds later. Can you now identify the individuals on the right-hand side? We've got Pat Goldborn, I think, in the middle there.
Watch Manager Silva, and it looks like Watch Manager Watson. I don't know who the other Watch Manager is.
You think it's Watson, do you?
Is that Watson? Oh no, that looks like Mr. William. Is it?
Williams.
Williams.
Glyn
Yes.
Williams. Right. Sorry, I've had to prompt you a little bit with that.
Sorry,
That's
yeah.
what we thought, but I wanted to get your recollection. My question really is, having seen these two pictures, does this ring a bell about the timing of a heated discussion? I mean, could this be the heated discussion?
No,
that
the
you're
heated
referring
discussion was in the actual lobby.
to? It was in the actual lobby.
The one that I witnessed was in the lobby outside.
Right. I see. Okay. So, bearing with me then, just or indulging me if you would, if you turn to INQ 334. And again, you may not know anything about this, and if you don't, then just please say. We can see in this picture, and this is camera 2 at 3:40:04, Watch Manager Williams, it's clearly him, talking to Luisa de Silva and gesticulating. Do you know anything about a discussion between them?
No.
Right. Now, going back to your statement, if we can, and I've shown this to you, you have talked about, in the third paragraph up at the bottom, the decision about not going above the 10th floor. Can I show you a different paragraph, same page? Second paragraph on that page, you say, I think it was GM Welch who made the decision that no one without EDBA should go above the 10th floor. I was made aware of that and so wrote it on the wall as a reminder. And just so that we've got that clearly there, if we can just be shown 5774 again, just so there's no doubt about it. you could see someone's written on the wall above 10 EDBA, below 10 SDBA. Is that you?
Yes.
That's the picture you're referring to. Right. Now, do you remember roughly what time that decision was made?
I don't. I asked, I communicated to the command unit at one point. When we found out that the crews were not going above the 11th, I communicated with the command units and asked them to write down, said, look, as from this time, as from now, because we didn't have any way of knowing the time. No, I didn't have watches on or anything, so I asked the command unit to write down, from this time, no crews above the 11th or no crews above the 10th.
Right.
So I don't know whether they would have wrote it up. I don't know whether they did write it up, but I did ask them to do it. The reason there's no time on it, because I didn't know what the time. We didn't know what the time was anyway. We had no way of telling the time.
No.
The time.
Do you remember whether your writing that down arose out of a discussion you had yourself with Group Manager Welch?
I could have. I might have. Yes.
Right. At that stage, did you give any consideration to whether you needed more EDBA wearers?
I didn't give the consideration.
Now,
it was around the same time that I think we had the no one above the 11th floor.
Right. So, just to be clear, how were you made aware that crews weren't going above the 10th floor?
I believe I was informed by the either Group Manager Welsh, at the time's Group Manager, he's at DAC now, or Group Manager Goldburn.
Do you know why the decision not to commit crews above the 10th floor was made?
I didn't at the time. Subsequently, I've heard that the crews couldn't get past the 11th.
Right. Now, Watch Manager
the conditions were so fierce from the 11th upwards, they just couldn't get past it.
Now, Watch Manager Watson gave evidence that he overheard Group Manager Welch telling a BA crew that they weren't committing crews above the 10th floor, and that he then, Watson, raised that with you.
Yeah, it probably was, yeah. Oh, but yeah, you're right, yeah. Sorry, that sounds plausible, yeah.
That sounds plausible, okay. And the transcript reference for that is 24th of July 18 at pages 105 to 106. Now, when that issue first came to your attention, did anybody go to the Bridgehead to speak to them about it?
I can't remember. I definitely spoke to people, and Mr. Williams definitely spoke to people, and
right.
Mr. Watson. I can't remember whether that was before or after the heated conversation. It wasn't a heated conversation, it was an impassioned conversation between Mr. Welsh and Mr. Williams.
Heated is your word. And
I know, yes. We'd already had 3 people fall out of the building. It was a confirmed fatal fire. The pressures and the stresses on these individuals was absolutely huge. And I could see from Mr. Williams that he took a personal... he took it personally that these were his people to save. These were his chits. They weren't just pieces of paper he was handing out. He knew the meaning. Of, he felt the meaning of these pieces of paper. That was people's lives. And that's why I think the conversation got heated.
Yes.
Mr. Welch wanted. He was the ops commander at the time. He wanted to put some. Well, I don't know why, but I assume he wanted to put some control over it, and the two of them had raised arguments, but it was only out of passion. It wasn't over I think it was just out of sheer passion for Mr. Williams.
No, I understand.
Glenn Williams, yeah.
I understand that. Just to see if we can help with some timings. Can I ask you to be shown INQ 312, 312? Now, this goes, I think, a little bit further forward in time. This is camera 4 at an adjusted time of 04:17:05. Can you see you in that picture?
Yep, right in the middle.
And what are you holding?
A pad of paper.
Yes.
And a pen.
And again, we see the other 2 watch managers on the radio. Where were you going, do you think?
I can only assume from the direction that was towards the glass door which led to the Bridgehead.
Yes. And at the next picture, which is only a minute or so later, 313, INQ 313, this is at camera 3 at an adjusted time of 04:18:48. Sorry, 04:18:12. I'm sorry, 04:18:12. Now we see a watch manager, or an officer in a white helmet, in the middle of the lobby there, walking towards
the doorway.
Watch Manager Williams, and him with his right arm raised.
I don't think Mr. Williams had his raised arm to him. I thought he had his raised arm to Group Manager Welch, who was behind.
Right. You're in this picture next to Group Manager, Watch Manager Williams, aren't you? There
yes,
on the left.
writing something down the path.
So wherever you'd gone, perhaps to the Bridgehead in the previous picture at 04:17:05, you'd come back to the wall, and we see Watch Manager Williams calling what looks like, well, you tell me.
I don't think it's him. I think he's, if you go behind that person, you've got Group Manager Welsh who's about to walk across.
So thank you.
That's my understanding of it.
That's very helpful. I was wondering. So that watch manager there in the white helmet, do you think that's Welch?
I think that's a station manager.
I think that's. Why do you say?
No, the Group Manager's, Mr. Welsh is further back with the two stripes. The person with the single stripe, that's a station manager.
Right. Thank you. So by the hose, that's the station manager.
Yes, that looks like a station manager.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know who that happened to be?
No.
Okay. And then the other white helmet there we see is Group Manager Welch.
It appears to be
Group
Manager
so?
Welch, yes.
Yes. Now then, if we look at the next picture, which is camera 3, adjusted time of 04:18:13, we'll have both on at the same time, and the next one at INQ 315, which is camera 4 at 04:18:19, both adjusted times. Now, we've got those up there. That appears, and I don't want to prompt you, but that shows you and Watch Manager Williams in discussion with an officer in a white helmet.
Yes.
And being handed notes, it looks like. Would that be right?
I think we were handing the notes to the Group Manager. I'm not too sure whether they were coming from the Group Manager or we were actually issuing the notes.
Now, can you identify that senior officer in the white helmet?
Yes, at the time it was a Group Manager, he's now a DAC. Group Manager Welsh, it appears to be.
You think it's Welch?
Yes.
Right. Now, there's to be clearer about this, there's a picture at INQ 356, which is taken camera 4 at an adjusted time of 04:18:32, which is only about 20 seconds later. What we can see, I think, Group Manager Welch walking now away from you. You're partly obscured by his white helmet, and you've got Watch Manager Williams next to him. So that confirms, is that right, that would confirm Watch Manager Welch as that Group Manager you were talking to?
Group Manager Welch?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, looking at all of those pictures, so 312, 313, 314, 315 and 356 we've seen, does this help us time the discussion, first of all, about whether Watch Manager Watson's instructions to crews was actually being passed on?
It would be around about that time.
And was that the same time as the heated discussion, passionate discussion about not getting...
I can't say for certain, but it was around that time, yes.
Right. Were they two separate discussions, or were they one single discussion about...
No, it's two separate discussions, from my memory.
Right. And did both happen in the lobby?
Yes.
Are you sure about that? I mean, I'm asking you to recall.
It does. From my memory, the heated discussion was in the middle of the lobby. Right. That's what I can remember. I could be mistaken. Okay.
And the discussion about, you say was separate, about FSG calls, FSG instructions being given to crews not being acted on by the Bridgehead, was that this discussion, do you think?
I think it might have been prior to that, because the Group Manager appears to be walking away with some of the chits
yes,
of the So it appears to be after that.
I see. So,
It all happened around about roughly the same time, and it was a very strange feeling.
right, okay. But at any rate, would it be right to summarise your evidence on these pictures in this way? That here is a discussion between you, Williams, and Welch about FSG calls at this time, which leads to him being given chits and walking
Yes,
away.
it appears to be like that, yes.
Okay. Do you know what happened to the chits of paper that you, Williams, and Watson gave to Group Manager Welch then?
No.
Okay. Do you, just to go back to what you call the heated discussion, and I'm sorry to keep using the word, the passionate discussion about the 10th floor, do you remember whether that was before or after after Watch Manager Williams left?
It'd have to be before, wouldn't it? Before he left, obviously.
Right. So we've got an outer boundary of
Okay.
4:30.
Okay.
Right. Now, and I'm sorry to keep bombarding you with photographs, but can I ask you please to be shown INQ 321? Because I think this might take what you've just told us about the separate discussion about the 10th floor, which you said happened in the middle of the lobby, a little bit further forward. This is camera 3 at adjusted time of 05:07:43. Perhaps it doesn't, but here we see, I think, you in the middle of the lobby talking to two white helmets with black stripes. It looks like two group managers. Does this ring a bell with you?
No.
Right. If you look at 338, INQ 338, this is an adjusted time of 05:08:12, so about 30 seconds later, different camera. Does that help?
I know the people, but I don't know what we were discussing.
Okay, can you just, I think we can identify the people, but just help us do that.
I think the top one's Nick, the one on the right above me is Nick Might, I believe.
Right.
Group Manager Welsh.
Yes.
Group Manager Goldblum.
Yes.
And Mr. Watson in the background.
Yes. And you don't remember what you were talking about?
I can't remember, but I would assume it would have to be an FSG because that's all we were dealing with. We weren't dealing with anything else.
Right. Now, going back to your statement, we could take these pictures off the screen. You say in the middle of that page, he then looked at me, and that's Group Manager Welch.
Yeah.
Took 3 pieces of paper and said they would try and get above the 15th. By this point, I knew the likelihood that everyone for whom I had chits in my hand would be dead. This was at about 5 a.m. For the past hour, without Watch Manager Williams, Watch Manager Watson, and myself knowing, no one would be getting up to the 15th floor. Now, just on the photographs we've been looking at, and the chits in Group Manager Welch's hands that we looked at in those photographs, timed at earlier on, so 4:18, 4:19, which we looked at. Do you think that 5 a.m. is right?
No, possibly not.
Okay.
I was, yeah.
And you then say, for the past hour, without Watch Manager Williams and Watch Manager Watson and myself knowing, no one had been getting above the 15th floor.
Yeah.
To be clear, how did you know that it was for the past hour?
We were told. I believe Mr. Watson was told.
You believe Mr. Watson was told?
And then Mr. Watson told us.
So who was he told by?
I assume it would have been either Mr. Group Manager Goldblum or Group Manager Welch.
When you did he tell you that before you had the discussion with Group Manager Welch or during it?
I can't remember.
Did you discuss with Group Manager Welch yourself why no one had been getting up to the 15th floor?
Yeah.
You did?
Yes.
At what point was that? Was that during this discussion?
We'd been told it's very vague, or it's not very vague, it's hard to be precise on times because there was no way of telling times. We were told that no one was going above the 11th floor. I communicated that to the command unit and said, look, no one's going above the 10th for some reason. Can you note it that no one's going above the 10th? And then shortly after that, I had a conversation with Mr. Welsh, Group Manager Welsh, and said, what about these people? And I held out these chits of paper. And Mr. Welsh said, well, no one's gone above the 11th. Well, he said, no one's gone above the 10th. Sorry for the confusion. I said, well, all these people are above the 10th. So he said, okay, we'll try and get to the 15th. But apparently the crews, at that time, the crews found it very difficult to go above the 11th anyway.
Did
and
you
from the state of the crews coming down at the time, it just confirmed that the conditions up there on the stairs and in the lobbies must have been absolutely horrendous. But yeah, I had a conversation with Mr. Welsh and handed him the sheets, and he said, okay, we'll try and get to them, and he took the sheets off me. Did that answer your question?
Well, let me try a different question. Did you ask Group Manager Welch why no one had told the FSG team in the lobby of the fact that for the past hour
I can't recall doing it. I can't recall doing it. I was
just
just reticent to the fact that they hadn't.
Right.
I didn't want to know why. It was just when someone said they weren't going above it, I can't be specific because the 10th was mentioned, the 11th was mentioned. No one's gone above the 11th, and I'm not committing people above the 10th. There was two things mentioned, and when we heard that, me and Mr. Watson and Williams, we just had a feeling of utter dread. It was like because all the chits of paper in our hands were all for the 11th and above, so it was quite
let's
telling moment.
Let's see if we can.
It took a while to get our breath back after that, and then start doing stuff. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that. But just to go back to my question, did you actually ask Group Manager Welch why no one had told you in the lobby, the FSG team in the lobby?
I don't believe I did. I can't remember. I can't remember doing so.
Okay. And what about the decision not to commit above the 10th floor? Do you know how long the Bridgehead had been operating that policy before you found out about it?
I couldn't be absolutely certain, but a conversation around of we haven't gone above the 11th for the last hour anyway.
Right.
It's in my memory, but who said it and when they said it, I can't recall.
Okay. Well, let me try a couple of pictorial pieces of information to see if this triggers a recollection. First of all, can I ask you to go to the photograph at MET *0057776? Now, it's not easy to see it because it's partly obscured by the yellow wires on the very far right of the wall by the door jamb there, but can you see under the yellow wires? We could perhaps have it magnified, please. It says 0430, no one above 15th. First of all, Mr. Wolf, do you remember how that writing got there?
I don't.
Did you write it?
I might have, yes, I might have.
Okay. Do you, looking at it, does this trigger a recollection?
It doesn't. I know I wanted to record it somewhere. I did definitely phone up the command unit and ask them to say, at this point, we're not going above the 10th. But I could well have done it because I understood. I wanted to record. That was an important piece of information, and I wanted to try and be as accurate as I could. But as you said, my times have been out a lot, so I must have asked someone for the time. I would have, if I would have been given that information, that was something I would have wanted to record. Right. So I may well have done so.
Okay. Now, and was that related to your discussion with Group Manager Welch?
It could well have been, yeah.
Okay. Now, can I also ask you to look at various versions of this, but let's go to MET 000-15925, which is an exhibit of Station Manager Egan's. It's his DEG5. And just for our transcript, we also have this at MET 000-15634. And that says, this is a whiteboard in CU7. And it says, if we look at it from SM Wolfenden, middle of the photograph, at 0425, BA crews committed to 15th floor. And then ditto onto SM Wolfenden at 0445, BA crews only committed up to 11th floor, not 15th. Now, do you remember either of those communications with
I remember the second communication,
Right.
definitely, but
Was that
obviously
by
I made
radio?
the first one as well.
By radio?
Yeah, it would have been by radio.
You remember this?
Or it might have been face-to-face, because
Right.
Station Manager Egan came down to the Bridgehead when we told them that there was a limit of how far, I can't remember exactly, I'm sorry, there was a limit to the number of floors they were going to. Mr Egan, Station Manager Egan, came down to the Bridgehead and came into the lobby because he was very upset with it. Upset with it, yeah, that's a good enough word. It upset him. So he came down to have a talk, and I believe he spoke to the incident commanders at the time.
What, Group Manager Welch and...
Well, I assumed Group Manager Welch was in charge, but apparently it was all the way through. It was Group Manager Goldblum was in charge of the actual Bridgehead and the fire sector. And I was told later on that Group Manager Welch was there as Sector Commander, Operations Commander, but he chose to stay at the Bridgehead rather than to support Mr Goldblum. So it's a very, very stressful time for everybody, and yeah. But information like that, I used to work in a fire investigation team, and it's key to record accurate information, I believe, and that was only my attempt to try and get some accurate information down. So the times 04:25 and 04:45, hopefully they're accurate, but I don't know. I didn't have a watch.
Yes. Now, Station Manager Egan told us that he recorded this on the whiteboard because it's what he got from you.
Yeah, I asked him to make sure he made a note.
So can we tie together the first entry there, 04:25 BA crews committed to 15th floor, with what you'd written on the wall at 4:30?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay.
What did I put on the other one? It was on the wall, 04:30.
Now, can I ask you to go back to your statement and look at the bottom of page 17, on the top of page 18, you say, however, I do not know for sure who made the decision. I'm of the view that the mix-up started before I arrived, when the Bridgehead was moved from the third to the ground floor. Something went wrong during that move, resulting in the error. First of all, what's the decision that you're referring to there?
Probably is the FSG system of. We were told that no one had been doing FSG for the last hour. We're not going above the 11th. I assumed it was that decision.
And what's the mix-up that you're referring to?
I was talking to Watch Manager Watson after the fact. Watch Manager Watson was the opinion that the system was. Watch Manager Watson and Williams both had the opinion that the system was working perfectly well when the Bridgehead was on the third floor. They assumed that when the mix-up happens, when they came down to the ground floor, it was of their opinion that that's when the mix-up happened, and no more fire survival guidance, or the fire survival guidance system had broken down, i.e. here's your chit, go to the floor. Right,
so the mix-up, being precise, being the fact that, is this right, that the officers in command of the Bridgehead were themselves deploying crews and not paying attention to the information that the crews had in their chits?
That's what I was told. Yes.
I see. Now,
we were told that by Group Manager Welch as well.
You were told that at what point by Group Manager Welch? I can't remember,
to be certain.
On the night?
Sorry?
On the night?
Oh yes, yeah, around about the 4 o'clock mark, half 4 mark.
Right. Now, in his evidence, Watch Manager Williams said that as a result of a discussion with the Bridgehead, you radioed the command unit to find out what FSG information they had on a floor-by-floor basis, and then compare it to the FSG information that you'd recorded on the wall. Do you remember doing that?
No.
You don't? His evidence was that the command unit had a lot more information than the information reflected on the wall in the lobby. Again, is that something you recall?
No, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. Can I ask you to look at, again, at MET quadruple 05776? There's a grid. Do you see there's a
Yes.
grid or tower-like thing on the image on the, which will be on the right-hand side of the wall, but in the centre of our picture there, by the number 94 in brackets. Now, Watch Manager Williams said that he thought that information was the list that he had started to transcribe based on FSG information that you had received back from the command unit, and then he stopped because he left. What's your recollection of that grid there?
The grid. I wrote the grid up, and it was an attempt to get some sort of control of information and awareness what was going on. So the idea being was to clear floors. So when a floor is being cleared, BA crews have searched the whole floor. We can strike a line in it and say, right, so we've got some sort of guidance of where we're progressing with the search.
Now, looking at the two entries cleared for floors 4 and 5, someone's written 0402 next to number 4 and 0430 next to number 5. Was that you?
I don't think so. I can't recall doing it.
Does that tell us that this grid was in place by 402?
Well, it would do, yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And do you know why no further floors were marked as cleared or any other information?
We could never ever confirm what floors were searched.
Right.
From the 11th floor upwards, including the 11th floor, every floor was an inferno. It was a nice thing to. It was again going back to Lacanol done it, and you put down the time you've searched a floor, and it gives you some sort of record of how you progress with the incident. But we could never ever use it.
Right.
We never cleared a floor above the 10th.
Now, I've got one or two quick more photographs to put to you, just to ask you whether they help with your recollection. Can I ask you to be shown INQ 316? We can see you, I think, we can all now assume that it's you, standing by the door. This is, I should just say, this is camera 4 at 0439, 40, adjusted. There is an ORT officer wearing the familiar red and white checkerboard tabard, taking photographs of the FSG wall in the lobby with his phone. Do you remember that? Do you remember an ORT officer? No. You don't know who that was, do you?
No.
Right. There's another picture immediately behind it, 317, and unhelpfully his back is to the camera, but you're talking to him. If we just go to it there, if we can just enlarge the picture. You appear to be on the radio, and there is an ORT officer there. This is at a time mark of 04:41:38 as adjusted on camera 3. Can you? That doesn't help, does it?
No.
Or does it? You don't know who it is.
No.
We get a clearer view of his face, possibly, in 319, INQ 319, camera 2, foot of the stairs by the Bridgehead at 04:43:21. Does he look familiar? Can you identify him?
No, I'd be guessing if I
Well, don't
recognise.
All right. Well, then we'll leave it at that. Well, there's another photograph actually. There's one more. I'm sorry to keep persisting with this because it may be important. INQ 320. We can see the ORT officer taking photographs in the Bridgehead.
It looked like Michael Mulholland.
Right. So the last one was jackpot. You think that's Michael Mulholland? Right. Thank you. We can tie that information back. Do you know whether any of these pictures relate to the discussion about committing the crews above or not above the 10th or 11th floor?
I can't remember, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wouldn't know.
Now, different subject, going back in time. Station Manager Egan gave evidence that after you had arrived at the incident, but before the stay put advice was, as it were, formally revoked, he had a discussion with Group Manager Goodall that they should be telling people on the phone to get out. And then he says he said the same thing to you over the radio, and you agreed with him. Do you have any recollection of that conversation?
I've got a vague recollection of it, yeah.
Right. Where were you when that happened, that
Bridgehead.
conversation? Sorry?
At the Bridgehead.
At the Bridgehead, right. And was that... Where was the Bridgehead at that point?
Oh, on the ground floor. I was always on the ground floor when I was there.
I see. But the Bridgehead didn't move to the ground floor until after 3:08. But his recollection is that the conversation with you was before the stay put was revoked. And although the timing of that is something we're still investigating. Can you help
I did have
with
a conversation, but my recollection of it was in the I was in the Bridgehead. It was over the radio.
Right. He also said that you were trying to. Sorry, I'll start again. He gave evidence that you were trying to put pressure on the Bridgehead commander to get crews into specific flats.
I may well have done.
Do you have a specific recollection yourself
No.
of that discussion?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Did you actually put pressure on the Bridgehead commander to get crews into specific flats at any point?
I don't know. I would have.
Right.
I would have hoped I did.
From what you could have seen, did you think you should have been telling people to evacuate?
It goes back to the system. When we got told no one above the 11th, it's got this really weird feeling of a total dread. That all these people's, these chits that you hold in your hand, there's no way of getting to them. So then you start thinking of what else can we do? What else could we have done? I thought about, because Danny had raised this, we just tell them to get out, get them to get out. And I thought about that, but I thought, if we've got firefighters in full BA equipment struggling to get past the 11th floor with BA, with their training in groups, in teams, and with hose, what chance do people stand on the 23rd, 24th floors in a pair of slippers and their dressing gowns? It was hard. I was still under hope that we could get to them and bring them out. But to have a rush of, to try and have the possibility of a rush of people on very, very narrow, tight stairs. And at the time, we'd lost a lot of hose at the top. We'd taken hose up to the higher floors. And a lot of the hoses had burst. So the stairs were like a mini river. It was just a torrent of water coming down. So you had the noise of the noise of this river of water, the screams and shouts of crews trying to communicate to each other, whistles off the BA sets, the roar of the fire. I thought, was it wise to turn around and tell people just to leave their properties and make a dash for the stairs? I was lucky I never had to make that decision. I really, but I thought about it, and I still haven't come up with a decision. In my own mind, I haven't resolved if I was the officer in charge, what advice would I have done? And I still haven't resolved it. It's when you above the 11th floor, those stairs, as one of the persons said today, it's just a chimney. All you're getting is thick, black, oily smoke, and a couple of lungfuls. And unless you're on your hands and knees crawling down the stairs, a couple of lungfuls would render you unconscious and probably kill you. So it was a big, weighing that against the opportunity to get crews to actually knock on a door, put their BA set, which some of the crews were doing that, they were taking the BA sets off, putting them on casualties, bring them down because they're used to thick smoke. They took the punishment rather than the individuals. We just tried. It was hard to. I couldn't make the decision. I really couldn't. I agreed with Danny. Something's had to be done because we're not going above the 11th. But it was tough. It really was tough. And I can imagine that, the two officers in charge, the two group managers, to have that on their shoulders, and it must be in hell. I didn't have an answer for it, sorry. I agreed with them because we weren't going to get up, but what carnage that would have ensued on the stairs, and there was still a possibility. Even when I left the tower at 7:30, maybe 7:30ish, and I went outside, and I was still convinced that there was people in the flats with the door closed and the windows closed that were safe, that we'd get to them, you know, still at 7:30, 8:30 in the morning. And then I went outside and looked up, and every single flat above the 11th floor on the side we were on was just a black and charred mess. Every single flat was 100% burned out.
So, yes, thank you for that description.
It was,
on that last piece of that last statement, does that mean that in fact you weren't getting any information while you were inside the tower and what was actually happening or visible from those outside the tower?
There was an awareness, but there wasn't an awareness of what had actually happened. And Pat and Richard had been in that tower for 4 hours, 5 hours, fighting the fire, doing everything they could to save life, trying to. And I don't think they fully understood. I didn't really fully understood until I went outside and saw it. But to have every single, above a line, to have every single property 100% damaged by fire is... If we had a fire tomorrow on a 10th floor block of flats and it was a 2-bedroom flat, it was 100% alight and as persons reported, that would be, to us, that would be 10 machines. We'd have 10, at least minimum 10 machines. And we had every floor, we had 6 or 8 flats per floor from the 11th to the 23rd, and every single one of them was 100% alight, virtually, or was going to be 100% alight. It was an impossible position. But some people made brave decisions, and I think that was, and Danny's was a brave decision to say, look, you know, to push that, you know, we have the all-out evacuation.
Can I thank you for that, but also just move on to just one or two very short final topics. The first is to ask you about some specific, a specific flat. Do you have any specific recollection about fire survival guidance in relation to any specific flat? Is there any one that stands out in your mind?
No. Not that I can think of.
Can I just see if I can ask you to help us interpret the wall then in relation to one particular flat? Can I ask you to be shown 5774 again? Met quadruple 0 5774. And I just want to look at the left-hand column with you, where we see 112 14 8p, three up from the bottom there. 112 14 8p. The 8p, what does that signify?
8 persons.
Now, do you remember whether that's your entry on the wall there?
It looks like it is, yeah. I assume it is.
Yes. Glyn Williams didn't remember and thought it might be you. It hasn't got a BA or a tick next to it. Does that mean that there was no deployment of a BA crew to that?
No, that would have resulted in a chit. The information was coming off the chits, and it would have been a chit, and it would have been passed on.
Do you remember whether, or do you remember 8 persons being trapped in flat 112 or 113?
No.
You don't?
No, sorry.
Now, if you look at the right-hand side of that picture, there's another grid to the left-hand side of the 94, if we could just expand that. And that starts at floor 15, looking at the very top, 15, 122.
112, 112, 114.
The flat numbers rise, or the floor numbers rise as you go down. Why did it start on that floor? Do you know? Why did it start on 15?
I couldn't say.
Is that your writing?
It looks like my writing. Right. Yeah, it could be. We were told at this time, as the incident was progressing, people were clustering in flats. They were coming out of neighbours and going into flats.
Right.
I think hence the 8 people, I believe.
Do you know why 113 or indeed 112 aren't shown in that right-hand grid, which starts at the 15th floor?
Again, I'm assuming that the people from 112 120 and 124 had gone to 122 for refuge.
Right.
That's my assumption
Okay.
from the information you've just shown me, but no, I can't tell you for certain.
Did you ever learn that only 4 of the 8 residents in flat 113 were evacuated?
No, I never learned that.
No. Final line of questions. Can I ask you to look at your statement at pages 9 and 10? Now, on page 9, from the second paragraph on, down the page and over onto page 10, we see a long description by you of a male that you came across lying on the ground by the playground. And you have marked on the map where the man fell, as you say, just below, halfway down the page. Can we go back to your first exhibit, which is your map, and just identify where he fell? Where you say he fell. Could you just do that for us?
Can you blow that up at the centre of it, please? To the left of the tower, there's a circle.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, just in terms of timing, did you see this man before you went to see Tom Goodall in CU7?
Yes.
You did. Now, you had arrived, I think, on scene at about 2:10, 2:12. We have your times for that. How long after your arrival at the incident do you think you saw the male in the place where you've marked it on the map?
I really couldn't be certain, but I would assume around about 40, 45 minutes maybe.
Right. Now,
that's assuming that I'd gone to the lobby area around about 3:20.
Okay. Are you able to tell us what sort of condition this man was in?
He'd fallen from a great height. To me, just to the left, to the right of that, where the circle is, there's a covered balcony walkway at the first floor level for the tower, and we were standing underneath that when we heard the thud. But no, to me, he looked quite dead.
Did he have both his limbs, his legs?
He had all his limbs, all his legs, yeah.
Is that a clear recollection of yours?
Oh, very clear.
Right.
The person who lost the leg, that person came out of the south tower.
South tower, you mean the south side?
South side of the tower, sorry, yeah.
Mr. Wolfenden, I want to say thank you very much for your evidence. It's been extremely helpful and I'm extremely grateful. But the norm is that we stop, but there may be questions which filter through to us from somewhere which I would want to put to you. So I'm going to ask the Chairman, Mr. Chairman, may we have a 5-minute break just to make sure before we release?
Yes, it's possible that there may be a few more questions, so we'll have a short break, but please don't talk to anyone about your evidence again when you're out of the room, and we'll come back at 25 to 5.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you very much. Right, 25 to 5, please. Yes, Mr. Millett.
There are never one or two short questions.
As ever, yes. Well, let's ask Mr. Wolfenden to come back. Thank you, Mr. Wolfenden. I think there are a few questions.
Just very few. First of all, when you arrived and saw the exterior of the tower on fire, and you told us earlier in your evidence today that you didn't think that the fire had actually penetrated the flats. Can I ask you this question? What steps, if any, did you take to communicate with those firefighters inside the tower to try to get from them an impression of the conditions within the building?
At that time, I took no steps.
Did it occur to you to take any such steps?
The whole firefighting side of the operations were all run from the front of the building, which was the south side. Yeah, the south side. The only reason I went around the west side was because I heard a radio message saying there's no one around, there's no one on the other side, which I assumed was the west. So that's why I walked round. But there was very little we could do. There was no firefighting we could do. There was no rescues we could mount.
Right.
So I didn't communicate to anybody. I didn't.
You didn't. Who was the incident commander when you arrived, did you think?
I thought it was Richard Welsh.
Right. Did you speak to him on arrival?
I didn't speak to anybody. I just went round to the west side and just started doing some actions there.
Why did you... So you were basically self-instructed, is that right?
There was a radio message when we... To go round to the command unit, the road was blocked. They'd ordered 20 machines and it just blocked everything. And when I was waiting to get down there, I heard on the radio, and I had to park my car somewhere because I was in a narrow street which couldn't be parked there. I heard on the radio, there's no one around the other side. So I assumed, I just assumed upon myself to go around the other side and see what we could do, but there was very little we could do. That ended up being that was the west side, that ended up being the main triage centre, I believe. Right. But firefighting wise and stuff like that, and the radio traffic was absolutely was horrendous, so I didn't want to chirp up and just say, oh, by the way, I'm around this side and there's nothing to report.
Did you take steps to find out what the tactical plan for firefighting or rescue was?
No, it didn't concern what we were doing. It wouldn't have affected what we were doing, so I didn't.
Right, okay. Thank you very much. I have no further questions. Can I just say thank you very much. We're very grateful and appreciative of your coming to the inquiry and assisting us with our investigations. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wolfenden, can I add my own thanks to you? It's quite a business coming to give evidence for such a long time, so
yes.
Very grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, you're free to go. Would you like to go with the usher then, please?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
that is it for the day, I imagine.
It is. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for sitting just a little bit late to absolutely to finish this witness.
It's important to do that if we can.
Yes, and there is no need to depart from the usual timetable for tomorrow morning on this occasion.
Thank you.
I'm glad to say.
So we'll all be pleased to know that we shall sit again at 10 o'clock tomorrow then. 10 o'clock tomorrow, please. Thank you.